Money is the problem and the solution. We raised about over $100 million, had over 200 people in the company. When things started to go shaky in self-driving after Uber, the wheels came off everything and we started losing customers left and right. I set out ambitious goals for the team and I let them know if we don't hit those goals, I'm probably gonna have to fire all of them. So it's live or die by success.
Hey everyone, Luke Rix here, CEO and co-founder at KC Ventures, and we're here today on the What I Wish I Knew on Day One podcast. And we've got a special guest here, Cibby, founder at Xabadu. Hey, Cibby.
Everyone, I'm Cibby Pulikkaseril. I am the founder and CEO of Xabadu. We deploy laser augmented machine vision into manufacturing.
What I wish I knew on Day One. So, mate, take us back to Day One of Xabadu and what that experience is.
For me, day one is really, I was leaving my first startup, Baraja, and everyone's advising me to go and get a job or take a break. But I did the opposite. I went and started talking to customers and I would see their manufacturing lines, see the problem firsthand, get really excited, put a bunch of lasers in a box, slap it on the manufacturing line and said, let's go.
It's been a very short journey so far. It's just over 12 months now, isn't it? Since
not 12 yet.
Not even. Mm-hmm. You talked before, like it came out of the idea from your last startup. But if we go back even before that, like what started that made you want to become a founder?
So I don't think I really had an idea that I wanted to be a founder. I feel like I've grown into that. But I was at this company that I was working at called Finisar Australia, working on lasers. And I really wanted to be in a startup, but I didn't have the courage to do it myself. So I kept trying to push other people into starting it. What I found is nobody wanted to take the risk. No one wanted to work without a salary. And then I met my first co-founder, Federico, and we started talking and really started aligning on this vision, which is let's put lasers on self-driving cars. And there was already examples in the market and you could see these huge, massive lidars and they cost $75,000. And we just got excited. We thought for sure we can displace that. And so we were excited to just quit and start this company.
And when was this? Like what year was this?
2015.
Yeah, okay. And then what gave you the conviction to then quit your job and actually start it?
Well, what gave us the conviction was, I think, recklessness.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we got a lot of advice about it's a commodity business. The Chinese are going to win. It's too hard to do in Australia. And I guess all three of those are correct.
In hindsight, yes.
In hindsight.
You have to have a little bit of, what's the word? Arrogance and...
Delusion.
Delusion, yeah, when you're a founder.
Super delusional. Yeah, I learned a lot of great lessons. Like, I think we did have fundamentally a disruptive technology and one that was unique in the market and that one that customers loved. I think the problem was that, we were making a new disruptive technology into a new disruptive market. And that just meant that it was a very volatile startup to be in. So when things were good, we had lots of potential customers. When things started to go shaky in self-driving after Uber hit a pedestrian and killed her, the wheels came off everything and we started losing customers left and right.
And what was that experience like? Because you guys raised a fair chunk of capital along that journey and you obviously were building something quite substantial. How did you deal with those ups and downs in the market, which sometimes feels like it's like, what could I possibly have done to avoid this situation? What do you reflect on then of how do you deal with those changes and forces in the market?
Look, I think it's a great question because we raised about over $100 million, had over 200 people in the company. And we were really committed to this mission of our technology, which was very unique. I think that I've always been really good at being calm under pressure and also very steady in uncertainty. And I think people will tell you that about me, that when things are very uncertain, I think I'm very comfortable in that space. I'm kind of happy in that insanity. Looking back though, I think what would have been important is to be really, really agile with the capital side of the business. I think that's probably where we should have been more sophisticated.
Tell me more about that.
I think a good example is like when you compete against American startups, like a lot of them are raising a lot of equity capital and then also buttressing that with debt. So some of our competitors we knew like were raising enormous amounts of debt to fund inventory and factory build out and things. And they would have done that in ways that would have been very advantageous for themselves because they knew that capital was key to winning business. Then the other thing that happened that actually, I mean, it was so shocking when that happened is one of these companies went and did a reverse merger.
A competitor of yours?
A competitor of ours
Yeah.
did like a SPAC
Yep.
when there was this SPAC boom.
Yeah. Yep.
That was a crazy time, right? Where you just saw, I don't know, it might have been 50 deep tech companies with no revenue became public companies on the NASDAQ or something and raised incredible amounts of money. So the first lidar company raised $600 million. The second one raised $400 million. Fed and I heard about this thing, SPAC, we look it up.
Yep.
But this is what it means. What is this thing?
Yeah.
By the time we learned what it was, like a whole bunch of other companies had gone through. The last one to go through was the seventh one. They raised $0. So like going public through this mechanism allowed them to soak up all the capital in the market. And in a way, like when you see that, look, I don't know if we could have done this. When you saw the first one, you had to run through the gate. It's like a gate closing.
Yep.
Because after everyone had gone through and the last one raised $0, the next time there was a hiccup in the market, everyone's public stock value decreased 80%. Then raising in private markets was impossible. You know, so there was this idea like once you lose that ability to go through the SPAC door, you were never going to raise another dollar.
Well, it's interesting because like I think a lot of founders that we listen to this, like you guys are based in Australia, you had overseas investors though, I believe. Most people would hear $100 million and think that's an insane amount of capital to raise, particularly for Australian founders. But you guys are operating in a very different mindset. You weren't competing with capital in Australia.
Nowhere near enough.
Exactly.
Not even close.
Yeah. How do you think about that now for the next business of how am I put myself in the mindset of I'm here in Australia, raising capital in Australia, but I'm competing globally for everyone else in this space?
So I think I've been very deliberate this second time around. So
Yeah.
I mean, I've always read a lot of these books and things. And, you know, Peter Thiel always talks about if you're competing, you're in a shit business. And I think lidar was the epitome of that. There was something like 70, 80 lidar companies. We were all competing for the same thing. But we were just excited about technology. So we just thought, oh, this is the right thing to do. Now I've been deliberate, which is I'm deploying systems on construction sites, construction factories, where the job is being done by a person and they can't find people to do it. So in fact, there is no one to compete against. They can't find a person to do that. So I'm not displacing any job. They just need to get the job done and they can't find a person. So I'm offering the only solution.
And what does that mean then for how you think about capital raising and capital allocation now, as opposed to what you were doing before?
So I think this time I'm incredibly disciplined. So I run a very tight ship financially.
Yep.
You're a
We
big part of
we
that,
know this. Yes.
right?
We do our
Every month
monthly
I sit with
CFO
you and
meetings.
we-
We're working
yeah,
with you. Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
But I think I really understand the second time, like what is the purpose of the capital? Like it has to be to fund further success. So I set out ambitious goals for the team and I let them know if we don't hit those goals, I'm probably gonna have to fire all of them. So it's live or die by success. Then we hit our goals and we raise a new round of money, and that has to be to get the next set of goals. And ultimately, I think we are offering something that is globally useful. So when it comes time to then really expand and scale, I think we should have like a great business, good metrics, cash generating, and then you raise money to scale.
And how does that experience, and you talked about like the honesty of the staff and the discipline that you're showing now, how does that compare to the first time when you were obviously raising much bigger amounts of money and how that capital got deployed off the back of that?
Money is the problem and the solution.
Yeah.
Right. So of course, like businesses like ours, we need money to be able to execute. But as I tell, and I talk with lots of other founders who all say the same thing, like you're kind of stressed about raising the money. And then once you get the money in the bank, now you actually have to do what you said with it. And that is a tougher, almost near impossible job to do. And so at Baraja, when we raised enormous amounts of money, I mean, the scale of the complexity of that was staggering. And in retrospect, like really, like we would have burned it inefficiently, lots of capital, like trying to find our way through that. So this time, I mean, I'm being a lot more deliberate about capital and what it's for. And really this time resisting as much an expansion headcount, I think is the key.
And the final thing, because on the Baraja side, like what was that experience like when you made the decision that it's time to move on to something else? How did you go on that journey? I don't imagine it was a one fell swoop of something happened one day that made that decision. Like, how did you go through that, and what was that experience like that's brought those lessons into Xanadu?
Yeah, I mean, at one point we obviously had to make a tough decision to downsize the company from a large, huge company to a smaller more R&D focused group of people. And everyone always tells me, oh, that must have been really tough. But in a way, I mean, everyone understood like that actually, I mean, it wasn't great. Almost everyone that I told that day actually had nothing but good wishes.
Yep.
They understood like, okay, the company's running out of money and we have to move on. And I guess, look, I can be proud that we did such a great job of training all these people to be incredible engineers. They actually all got incredible jobs somewhere else. After that, the harder part was then if you're not a company that's going to manufacture 1 million lidars, you have to find something else to do. And that was a much harder journey, is like trying to figure out what we were trying to do after that.
Yep.
And that's what caused like at Baraja us to start looking at more industrial verticals. And that was then, I guess, the keystone of like those conversations. Then even though Xabadu is doing something totally different, but the customer relationships started from that point.
So let's fast forward to Xabadu. As I said, less than 12 months old. You've raised a bit of capital already. What was the first thing that you did when that capital came in, and how did you start thinking about that allocation?
For me, look, the money was coming in, but I had done investment by safes.
Yep.
And so it was staggered. So it wasn't one day where all the money was coming in. So I was funding it out of my savings to begin with. And then the safes came in and it just replaced it. So unlike other founders that have a moment where there's all this cash in the bank.
Yep.
For me, it was just a continual process. Yeah.
And then you're continuing to raise, build at the same time. And what's that experience like with investors, like getting that confidence to go into the second startup? And then how's that experience since then of how do you work with your investors now, which are still a very early company, and take them on the journey of where you want to get to?
So being a second-time founder, the great thing is like I know personally so many of the founders, and the ones that came in the pre-seed, I would know like really close over 10 years. So I think that is something like that's a huge advantage. You know, coming in cold to an investor meeting and then doing a pitch, it's a very unnatural thing, right?
Yep.
But when you have personal relationships, that makes it a lot easier and a lot more genuine. So all the investors that came in the pre-seed, I mean, I think they just really trust me as a founder. And the actual details about the business they know are going to change. So they're happy with that uncertainty, but they're sort of backing me to do something the second time.
And how is that different to Baraja in the first instance? Like how do you, because obviously we've got a lot of founders that are listening to this that haven't built another business before. How do you get that same sort of backing, particularly in the very early stages where a lot of Aussie VCs don't necessarily invest in the pre-seed stage we're talking about? How do you feel like you can get across that type of confidence, and how did you do it the first time versus the second?
So the first time, I think we were really fortunate because I had all this work experience, and Fed and I were at the same company before. So there was some amount of due diligence they could do because they knew people that worked at that company. They knew the founders of that company.
Yep.
So we did a lot of things by reference. And then a lot of the due diligence was them, like Blackbird put us in touch with Uber and Google and companies like this to pitch them as customers, and then they would hear back. And I think that's where they got the confidence from. The relationships came, like we used to then spend a lot of time in those early days, like with Rick and with Nikki, and spending time at the Blackbird offices, meeting the other founders. And so that original cohort, like there was a lot of engagement at that time. And I think that contributed to like the relationships.
It was a bit of a different world back then, wasn't it? Like,
very different, yeah.
Like the startup ecosystem was tiny compared to what it is today.
And at that time, I remember like some of the LPs like criticizing Canva for not making enough money.
And they're the same LPs that will be quite happy these days.
Very happy, right? Yeah.
I asked this question a bit though, and I had an argument with the mate of the pub about, do you think it's easier to start a business today or 10 years ago?
Today.
Today?
It must be today, right?
That's my argument, but yeah.
What's the argument the other way?
That, and I had another guest on here as well that said they think it's much easier to start today, but harder to get the escape velocity that you need to build something big, because it's a far more it's easier for you, easier for everyone else, harder to build a sustainable business than it used to be.
In software.
Potentially, yeah. Oh, you can argue in anything. It's easier to be disrupted. It's harder to build moats. I think that's probably the argument.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? If the barrier to entry is lower, then it's easier.
Yeah.
I think just software has had an incredible run where it was like great margins, big teams, great salaries, and now things are a little different. But I think if you're in hardware, I mean, everything is so great now. And so I told our hardware team, I said, so like for mechanical design, you'll have to use this open source software. And the engineer said, but I'm a lot faster in SolidWorks. So it's better for the company if we use SolidWorks. I was like, great. When you start your own company, you can pay for SolidWorks. At this company, we don't pay for SolidWorks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you think the appetite in the market, particularly in Australia, around hardware? Because if you go back 10 years, I think you obviously raised some capital in a hardware business, but I don't think it's easy. Do you think that mindset's changing a little bit?
It's particularly good now. I don't know if I think it's just flavor of the month.
Yeah.
So I actually, it's been really easy for me to get meetings with VCs because we have this defensibility now, right? Like in our business, if we install a system on a construction manufacturing line, once that customer is using it, maybe it doesn't get uninstalled for 10, 15 years.
Yep.
So it's a great moat.
So where to next for you? Like you talked about, and the Xabadu team. So talked about that it's been a short amount of time. You gave everyone that ultimatum. If we don't hit our goals by this date, then everyone doesn't have a job. How are you thinking about that next stage of development? And obviously things are going quite well. How are you thinking about the next evolution where you want to get to?
So the great thing about the small teams, we've been really agile. So when I started the company, the idea was to look at customers that I knew. They were in recycling, they were in mining. But then through a lot of customer interviews and discovery and really forcing people for us to work with you, this is the size check you need to cut. And forcing people to pay is the ultimate way to see how interested they are. And that's where we ended in construction. Like people were willing to pay up front. That's how badly they needed it. So now I feel validated that we are in the right space. And now that I've sized the market, I just think there's incredible opportunity. I think I've said to you that there's about $500 billion of construction expenditure planned in Australia for the next 5 years. And everyone knows there's not enough productivity and there's not enough people to do that. So it's going to have to come from technology, and we are part of that answer. So incredible opportunity for us. We've closed some really important customers in the last 12 months. And so now the story for us would be, let's prove that we can execute on that and get all the customers we can in the next few years. Get them all in Australia, move overseas, and get them overseas as well.
And it sounds like a much more deliberate customer-focused strategy than what maybe you've done in the past. And how are you thinking about, you talked about your financial discipline and these other components of when you raised the first round. Do you think that's going to continue on into the journey of the company?
I hope so. I like running a tight ship.
Well, you like running a tight ship, but you're also a big advocate in conversations we have about the most important thing in startups is speed and competing on a global stage. So how do you balance those two things together?
So I think if you want to move fast, especially when you talk about markets that are as big as Europe or the US, you have to loosen the purse strings to be able to execute in those places, which means you'll have to make mistakes. And so you have to be willing to spend money and see what works. And yeah.
And I think this is what I say as well. It's the idea of capital efficiency and being deliberate with your capital doesn't mean not spending. And I think we've had these conversations before of if you've got the idea of, I think the line that I use is people spend too much money pre-product market fit and then not enough after.
Yeah, that's great.
And just because you're being disciplined with capital doesn't mean that you're not actually spending, growing, accelerating that growth, but it's doing it the right way. So when you made that decision to finish up at Baraja and make that jump across to Xabadu, how did you go through that mindset of, I'm going to start again and start from scratch? How was that journey?
Yeah, so I think this is the part that really shows who's a founder and who's not. And it's the irrational hope.
Yep.
So I was leaving Baraja and I had a job offer from another startup, another tech company. So very established, very low risk, great salary, equity, great team. I like the founders and in my field. So I could just spend my days doing lasers and photonics. That's for me, pleasure. Instead, because I was talking to customers, I was so excited by something that was a hint of a problem. And I had no product and no real idea what the market size was. But that was enough excitement for me to take my family's savings and put it all in this new company.
Yep.
I told my wife about that and she was like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, I think we're an unusual family in that we are very excited by risk.
Yeah.
She also is starting her own business at that time. So we are two parents working 7-hour days, running two businesses and having no money.
How do you juggle that?
I tell my kids, like my employees, I said, well, if things go well, I'll be able to pay for school. If not, then we'll have to pull you out of school. Yeah. And you have to go to the public school.
Well, it's I don't know about you. It's such a juggle. Like I always feel like you're never giving enough to either of the like home life, work life. You want to be putting yourself fully into both of these things all the time. But I think working parents and founders who are parents who are able to pull it off, it's like quite incredible.
Look, and I think I'm really at a great point in my life. My kids are, my son is 15, my daughter is 12.
Yep.
And so what I think is not that they need us to take them to the park. What they need to see, I think, is that we have lives that we are fully engaged with, that, you know, we're excited by. Like, you know, I think both my kids know every Sunday night I'm excited to go into work Monday. Since I started Baraja till today, even when I'm having bad days at Baraja, like when we had layoffs or losing customers, every Monday I'm excited to go to work. I don't think there's many people that can say that at my age. I think that's a rarity. And I think I impress that on my kids every day. I've also done the clever thing, which is my office is across the street from where I live.
Yep.
So my kids come every day after school. That's where they come see us.
And it's a cool office.
Cool office.
Yeah, there's robotics pieces all around. Yeah.
So actually, in a way, I see my kids way more than I would have seen them if I had a job somewhere else.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, final part here now, Cibby. We go through fast five questions. I got to fire at you around what it's like being a founder. So first question, what is the best money you've ever spent in business?
It's a very oddly specific thing about photonics. I don't think that's a good answer.
If it helped you grow the business, right? Like,
so at Baraja, we were doing integrated chips, right? And testing them. But who cares about this? I got to think of something else, yeah.
Is it like a staff member that you hired that you didn't know that you needed? Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So my VP of product today, Nathan Kirchner, he's a second-time founder as well. He was the founder of Prescient, which is a machine vision company for construction. And I've known Nathan for years. When I started Zabadoo, he started just coming around, was really interested in what we're doing. Obviously, like, you know, he's a figure in the robotics community, so he just spends time with a lot of startups. But very quickly he said, look, how about I help you to land deals in mining? I've got a big background there. I'll do 1 day a week or something like this. And then very quickly, when we figured out it was going to be construction, it was an accident. We were both doing all these mining meetings. And then we accidentally took a meeting in construction and realized that they were going to pay immediately for something. We looked at each other and said, oh man, this is the way. And then I brought him on full-time, nearly full-time after that. He took a huge pay cut.
Yep.
In exchange for equity, but then that's what led to where we are today.
Yeah, and without spending that cash, like
I think everyone else would have been slow to do that.
Yep.
No, I saw what was needed to do. I have a crazy story about that too.
Okay.
This is
hit me.
I lived in Australia for 20 years. In the last 12 months, I've learned more about Australia, I think, than in the last 20. So I'm with Nathan, and Nathan, he grew up like in country New South Wales. And we're in Brisbane at this meeting with these construction guys.
Because most of your meetings now are in like Toowoomba and rural Australia, because that's
I've
where
never heard
construction
of.
happens.
That's right, yeah.
And
So
that's not
we're
somewhere that a Canadian goes and visits on a holiday.
And look, everyone's super nice to me. And they like to listen to what I have to say. And they can tell from what I say that I can pull off the lasers.
Yep.
But they're not inviting me to the pub.
Yep.
That's cool. I get this meeting with Nathan and I go and meet these guys in Queensland. Nathan like brushes his hands, sits down, and he says, all right, guys, I'm not here to fuck spiders. And I have never heard that in my life. And I'm shocked that anyone would say that in front of customers. And I'm also confused. I don't know what it means. And I don't know if sometimes he does come to fuck spiders or even what are the size of the spiders that they have here in Brisbane.
And did anyone else bat an eyelid?
They all, of course, what did they?
Yeah, great. No,
great.
we're not here to do that. Yeah.
And then we got a deal out of that. So, but that was for me the realization, like how important it is to have the right kind of personal relationships in this space, especially construction where it's very relationship based. So depending on the customer, Nathan and I play a game like good cop, bad cop. Like sometimes I don't even go if I think he's going to be really successful there.
Okay. Question 2. What's the worst advice that you feel like you've ever been given in business?
Look, it's really hard for me to think of something because I spend so little time thinking about people's advice that I don't value.
Yeah.
So I don't hold
You
on
got
to
any
it.
good pieces of advice?
Yes.
Things that sat with you for...
Yeah, especially I think very early on. I mean, you have to remember that in my first business, I was a CTO,
Mm.
and my co-founder Fed was a CEO. So he did most of the front-facing work with VCs. In Zabadoo, I'm doing it all. And actually, I did get very useful advice from some VCs early on about like figure out what customers want. Like before we have any idea about the market or the product, we're trying some stuff. And they give me like very specific, like ask these 10 questions.
Mm.
And then I did that. I went out to 10 customers and asked these 10 questions. And that did help to sort of circle around what it is that we're trying to do for value.
One tool you can't live without. You love it.
Does Python count?
Yeah, it can count. Yeah, I'm sure.
You know, when I started the first business the company I was working for, everyone was using MATLAB and Excel. And I couldn't stand it. I mean, you had to pay for it. So it means not everyone had the same license. So when we started Baraja, I said, we're switching everybody to Python. And that was before all this stuff really kicked off, right? So it wasn't as popular as it is today. But you can imagine like learning Python from back then to today, like now everything is effortless. Like new AI tools come out.
Yeah.
Like, I've been using Python for so long that it just seems easy to do.
Question 4. What do you wish investors and VCs understood about being a founder that they may not?
So something I think is really interesting about US investors is they are very competitive to get into deals early. And I think when they see a second-time founder go up to the plate again, you might get very aggressive VCs trying to get in early. And I think Australian investors are not like that, not like that at all. I think that they don't understand that the thing that's really, really important, I think, in a founder is leadership. Like very quickly after 4 or 5, like it stops being a bunch of buddies and is a team, and you actually have to impress on people leadership qualities. And I think they should ask, like, what capacity does this person have to lead a team?
Not just lead a team, but attract a team,
all
build
these
that
things,
team,
right?
get the talent in that they need to.
And I spend a lot of time with early stage founders, and I judge them on that. Like, do I think this is someone that can lead a team? And since we're all from tech, a lot of us actually, the answer is no. I think they don't have leadership skills. They might develop it, but most of the time, like the first time that they get hit in the face with a problem, what's their emotional reaction to that? I think is a metric of how they're going to perform.
Yeah. And I think good VCs though, like you told the story about Nick and Ricky at Blackbird back in the day, like how they validated Baraja was all about you personally and your co-founder personally, and focused in on the founder and your qualities. It wasn't about the business or the market size, all these other things that I think other VCs focus in on. Early stage investing is far more reliant on the founder than it is on.
Look, I can talk a lot about Rick and Nikki. I mean, they created a fund that was meant to be investing in founders. And look, they do privately what they say publicly. And in those early days, they really went out and found, like, are these founders people that we want to back? Like when they invested in Luke and Nir, I mean, he was a wild, crazy guy. He was a private investigator, right? Like he had this incredible backstory.
Safety culture,
Safety culture, sorry. Yeah.
And mate, wrap up the last question. Like, this is called What I Wish I Knew on Day One. If you go back to day one, what do you wish you knew?
So I think one of the really important things is to avoid things that are easy. They have to be hard. Like we all know that the founding journey is going to be hard, and having a company is hard, and all this is hard. And so I think it's a natural instinct to try to make some things as easy as possible. A good example is like just outsourcing everything to your accountants or all these things, right? But as I told you, when we started working together, like I want to reconcile everything myself, at least for a while, right? Like that's part of like having the discipline of doing that. And I do the same with my team, which is we do a lot of things I'm sure people don't like doing, but we do them because I think they're important. And that's part of the culture I'm trying to set up. For example, I get everyone to come in early on a Monday and we clean the lab.
Yep.
Something we never did at Baraja. And when I had to go out and clean the labs personally, what did I find is piles upon piles of extremely valuable lasers and optics crushed just by being not put away properly.
Yep.
And that kind of hurt me personally. Like we had spent this money on something that was not valued. And so I tell everyone, this is our company value is practice cleanliness. So from Monday, we clean so we know where everything is and we're ready to start the week.
I like it. I think there's something to be said. As you grow and scale, you've done every job in that company. So there's nothing that you can get through the cracks of you've done the sales, you've done You've done the product. You've even cleaned and been the cleaner. Even if you get to 200 people, you can still remember back to what that was like. So when there's someone in that role, they know that you've also done that too, and you've actually got the insights as part of it, as opposed to outsourcing it from the day one. I like it. Cibby, thank you very much, mate.
Thanks, Luke. Always a pleasure.
And everyone, you can get this on YouTube. Find wherever you find your podcast, and we'll have some more great Aussie founders coming up on What I Wish I Knew on Day One.